the account. And even on LinkedIn, like seeing all of the new Performance Max updates hitting the accounts, like the search query reporting and more placement visibility. It's like, finally, we've been asking for it for years.
I know. Finally getting to see like the ad spend associated with search queries is like something we used to have with with shopping and like disappeared for a long time.
Yeah,
Performance
it's like
Max.
trends, right? They just come back around. My mom always would always say if you hang on to it in your closet long enough, like there'll be a chance you or your grandkids will wear it again. I feel like that's like what we're experiencing on Google. It's like, okay, we just
Yeah,
wait long enough. A lot of things that worked well and we had before, we'll get again.
I like
Or
that.
even just the ability to add the negative keywords directly in the campaign rather than having to submit an Excel form makes it a lot easier and
Oh
actionable.
my gosh, game changer.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. I think Google finally heard everyone when they said they want more control of these campaigns.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my gosh, looks like we've got quite a few people coming in. Would love to hear where everyone's from around the country. Even me, Logan, and Tom, we're all kind of spread out. I'm in Michigan. Not sure if we've got any other Michigan friends coming in. We've got finally great weather here. I was just telling Logan and Tom, it's like battle of the lawns here in Michigan right now as spring's hitting and it's finally green and not just white from snow.
Yeah. It's yeah, Tom and I are in the Boston area and we're like similar. It's finally like a little nice. Gotten a lot of rain lately. I feel like my
Yeah.
son's baseball games have been rained out like every week. But
Oh,
you know, finally some sun the last couple of days, or at least today. Cool.
yeah.
So we'll get started in about 1 minute. But like Laura said, if you guys who are filing in, if you want to introduce yourselves in the chat, maybe write what business you're from, part of the country you're from, or what country you're from. If you're
Yeah. Hey,
international.
Brennan, away from across the lake. I'm outside of Grand Rapids, so I'm right on Lake Michigan. So I can wave. Sometimes in Benton Harbor, if it's a real clear day, I think you can see the Chicago skyline. Oh, Colorado, Loveland, Colorado. I love Loveland, Colorado. Some great breweries out there. Beautiful area, and you're not too far from Colorado Springs.
We have Katie from sunny for now, Maryland. Love that. Brent from Chicago.
Oh, Milwaukee and Green Bay. Can I say go Lions in here with Packers fans?
Even I like the Lions, and I'm a diehard Patriots fan.
No. How could you not like the Lions with this comeback period? It's so great.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone for introducing yourselves. It's 2:03, so I think we can begin. We have a good group in here right now. Oh, we have Nick from Cambridge, UK. Welcome, Nick. Great. So thanks so much everyone for joining. Today we are presenting ways to recession-proof your Google Ads account, and we're focusing on 5 mistakes that can be very costly that you could potentially make. Um, so we'll do quick introductions. My name is Logan Durant. I'm our SVP of paid media here at Agital. Been at the company for 13 years now. I lead our paid media department. I get the distinct privilege of working with talented thought leaders like Laura and Tom. Laura, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Logan. It's so great working together, and Logan's just such an incredible thought leader. And my name's Logan. Well, my name is Laura Peterson. I'm a senior director of paid media here at Agital. Been with Agital for about 3 years, but been working within Google Ads and Google Shopping ads specifically for just about 10 years now. And gosh, thinking back to Merchant Center and the way Google Ads was 10 years ago and where we are now, it's just so different, but like we were talking about at the beginning, there's new trends coming back. So it's just such a great time to be with the team and working with Tom. Tom, we've had some great new updates lately together.
Yeah, yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Tom Del Signore, Director of Paid Media here at Agital. I've been with the company for It'll be 7 years this month. Pretty wild. Time flies. I can remember back when broad match was the boogeyman under the bed, and there's a lot of adjustments there and updates there that have been exciting over the last few years. And yeah, very excited to be with you all today.
All right, thank you both. So let's start off with what we're going to learn today. We're going to focus on the 5 ads mistakes. Some of those that we're going to focus on are keyword truths. We're going to show you how to use high intent terms that convert. We're going to show you some feed fixes, optimizing that shopping feed, which sometimes can go under the radar in terms of how its impact on your ads. We're going to talk about bidding smarter, when to use the right bid strategies in different scenarios. And then we're going to talk about retargeting the right way and different ways that you can segment your retargeting audiences for the most impact. Wanted to start off with this quote here just to show that marketers can waste anywhere between 20 to 26% of their ad budgets annually on poorly targeted, underperforming ads. We know that Google Ads is a big part of most people's marketing strategy, and this can be a big contributor to that waste if things are not done correctly. So we'll show you in this webinar a bunch of stones to look under, a bunch of things to contemplate to start to significantly reduce that wasted ad spend. But first, before we dive into it, we'd like to hear from you guys. We're going to do a poll. We'd like to know how your Google Ads account is performing this year versus last year. Is it better than last year, worse than last year, about the same, or hey, maybe you're not quite sure? And Laura, I know that tariffs have obviously been on the forefront of everything. And what have you seen with? I know that there have been some impacts that we've seen in the last
Yeah,
month.
I was gonna say, what a time to ask this question, right? As everything
Yeah.
is totally topsy-turvy. Yeah, we've definitely, even some new things coming out of last week where we've had suppliers kind of cutting off some products. So that's really shaken up maybe what our top products are in some campaigns and how we're quickly pivoting to recoup that revenue in other areas. We've got a lot of audiences now becoming that like penny pincher mentality. So when people are looking for something and in that intention bucket, how do we make sure like we are the ones they see? I think we're just having to get a bit more aggressive with getting in front of those immediate shoppers. And then also, really looking for everywhere we can maximize products that have like great price benchmarking and really being mindful of those that might be impacted by supply issues. So lots of different factors at play here.
Yeah, so many things to account for and so many adjustments that are needing to be made in a lot of accounts these days. Okay, so we have a good number of people who have responded. We're going to share the results here. So we have about 21% that say better than last year, 17% worse, majority about the same. I think, that sort of stagnation can happen when, demand can kind of stay similar or CPCs aren't moving in some industries as much. And then 24% of you aren't sure. So could be a good opportunity to start to look at some of these points that we're going to bring up later in the webinar. Excellent. All right, so we're going to jump into mistake number 1, targeting the wrong keywords. And Tom, I will hand it over to you.
All right, perfect. So yeah, a few things to cover here related to keyword targeting. So I mentioned broad match at the top of the call. There's been a lot of changes made to broad match that I think it really is important that we're testing in accounts. But it's really important that we're having the right guardrails put in place and not over relying on broad match. Also, the idea of being too long tail can sometimes hurt accounts because when we're too specific, we're narrowing our ability to get ads shown. And that can sometimes hurt profitability, hurt volume, and ultimately hurt profitability too as a whole. Generic keywords also. There's always the use for generic keywords, but we don't want to overutilize them, or we want to make sure that we're monitoring them correctly as well. So on this next slide here, just to go over each kind of the match types or the different functions of search, when to use and when to avoid. So broad match and phrase match. Broad match and phrase match can be great for when you need high visibility. So it does open up the door a little bit more for the search terms that you can qualify for. That could be particularly great when search volume is low. So, when you're too narrow, your search volume is going to be too low. And this is a way to expand that search volume. Also, keyword discovery. I often use broad match as a keyword discovery tool because it's a great way to identify what are search terms that we're not currently going after, but are actually converting well or prompting good click-through rates. When to avoid. So broad match and phrase match, when to avoid where synonyms might have significant conversion rates, something we want to be aware of and have a little bit more control over. Search volume is very high. Broad match can sometimes run away with spend. So you have a little bit less control there. And also profitability with some of that less control that you have on broad match, that can also result in some lower profitability and just overall less control over profitability. Ultimately finding that sweet spot between discovery, but also keeping things in range. On the exact match piece. So utilizing exact match is really important to make sure that we're going after with the most control, the terms that we want to own, the terms that we know are the highest conversion rate, converting terms have the highest conversion rates, where performance is predictable. When to avoid or when to not over rely on exact match or only rely on exact match is when volume is too low. I've been mentioning that where if you're restricting into just these maybe longer tail exact match keywords, you might be leaving a lot on the table. And also when searches can vary dramatically, and by just having exact match versions of those searches, you might be leaving things on the table and you might not be fully capturing that with exact match. The last piece here that I'll talk about is dynamic search. Again, dynamic search is a great way to get keyword discovery in the account. Perfect for large catalogs, almost using it as a catch-all for your site. When there's unpredictable performance, we can put on, a value-based bidding strategy with the DSA campaign, and you can often find some pretty good conversions come through with good returns. There are some things you want to keep in mind with dynamic search that I often see go awry in accounts. So, when volume is high for specific terms, we usually run away spend on terms that you might even already be targeting in your keywords, or that you don't want to be targeting in your keywords. Having a good grasp on that is really important. When the keyword universe is small, DSA cannot really be as effective. This often will go to the SEO on your site. So if the content on your site is not optimized to the best of its potential, you're likely going to see your dynamic search ads, tend to suffer because of that. Strong SEO tends to do better for DSA, and obviously vice versa. And the last point I'll mention here that is really important to monitor on dynamic search is when you have a high amount of non-transactional pages. So, for example, if blog targets are popping in to your DSA campaign, that'll often prompt a lot of traffic, but likely not very many conversions. I've seen that happen a lot in accounts where blogs are meant to get a lot of traffic, but not a lot of times are they focused at generating conversions. So it can do a great job of that in your DSA campaign, but if you're not putting the right guardrails up, it could run away with spend and ultimately hurt your efficiency. Awesome. So an example here that we wanted to throw up was a fashion brand. So, the idea of finding that sweet spot. We don't want to be too broad. We also don't want to be overly specific or too granular. So an example here would be a keyword for summer outfits could be great in a testing budget, you know, putting some visibility out there. But if you put too much spend behind this and you put too much focus behind this without enough focus on more category level or subcategory level type keywords, you're likely going to be under optimizing keyword approach. So the example here is something like even just women's shorts or women's linen shorts being a little bit more granular to align and be more relevant with landing pages on your site can prompt not only better click-through rate because of relevancy with the ad in the search, but also better conversion rate. If we can bring them to a targeted landing page that matches more closely with their search. And the last thing I'll add here too is the idea of being too granular. You know, if we were to add too many long tail keywords that would essentially bring somebody to a product page, that could be okay in certain high volume situations. But in a lot of cases, that's something you would just want to leave up to for your product listing ads or in PMAX. And something you don't want to be doing too much of in search because you might not see it as an efficient spend.
I think that's such a great point, Tom. Like, it's so easy to fall into the trap of wanting to capture a niche, and sometimes it's easy to go a bit too far. Maybe here in the instance, it could be women's linen shorts, blue, size 8, and then we've really narrowed ourselves into a one specific product. And what if that product is out of stock? And if we're looking to capture that sweet spot, taking people to more of like a collection landing page, avoiding a blog, which maybe would have been a better fit for looking for summer outfit inspiration. But here we really want to capture shoppers in the market for those shorts. I think that's a perfect way to balance that sweet spot. So I just love that point. I think it's such a great example.
Appreciate that, Laura. Cool. Yeah. And just to summarize here, three main things in terms of how to fix your keyword targeting approach and accounts. Like I mentioned, identifying that sweet spot. So we don't want to be overly broad. If you are being broad, we can rein it in and put testing budget behind it. But we want to make sure that we're identifying keywords that make the most sense to prioritize. Layer in negative keywords. This is going to be the most important in this time because of the use of broad match. Like I mentioned, broad match is important in accounts, but we want to make sure that we're constantly adding negative keywords to keep the guardrails in place. And then similarly, using search term reports to continuously refine targeting. So that can be adding negative keywords, being on top of what terms are coming in that we don't want to come in, that we don't want to spend on it and serve ads for, but also what are search terms that are coming in that we're using those keyword discovery tools like broad match or just dynamic search ads that we want to now build exact match for, or more specific ad groups or campaigns for. We want to constantly be refining our targeting based off of the search terms coming in. And one last point here that I'll make, I skipped on the negative keywords part. A common mistake, I'll call it, that I see in a lot of accounts is where people are not separating brand terms with non-brand terms in search campaigns. So, when I say brand terms, I mean like your trademark terms. You want to make sure that your non-brand terms are segmented out of brand and vice versa, because that customer is very different. So adding negatives for your brand or trademark terms into your non-brand campaigns can be really important to make sure that your brand terms are not stealing away from your ability to drive non-brand and new visitor traffic.
I think that's such a great point too. And one thing we were talking about just at the top when we were talking about Performance Max updates was that, we're slowly starting to see the rollout of those search insights. But in the meantime, it's like, what can we do to get that visibility? So we'll share like just an insider tip, I guess. If you're in Google and you're in your Performance Max campaigns, you can go to the Insights tab, scroll down about halfway through, and you'll be able to see those search terms that are leading to those clicks, those impressions, and those conversions in your Performance Max campaign. And to Tom's point, it's really important to understand what the contribution is of your branded terms and your non-branded terms. So if you've been kind of wishing for that visibility, it is there. It's just a couple different steps to find until we get that full scaled rollout of search term visibility for PMAX. But that can be a great jumping off point if you're thinking, oh, I wish I could just see what that distribution is for PMAX. I know, Logan, that's an area where we've just found so much value.
Yeah, it really it makes a world of difference being able to see the search queries and saying like, is this a glorified brand defense and retargeting campaign, or is it really a campaign that's going after new customer acquisition? I love that they're giving us more and more data to make decisions in Performance Max. Cool. So let's move on to mistake number two, which is ignoring shopping feed optimization. I think this is something that people will often kind of overlook, Laura, and it's something that can be super important when it comes to visibility, performance, revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is the number one spot that can be a set it and forget it, but it shouldn't be. And you don't have to out yourself, but you can silently raise your hand if you have not touched your merchant center in over 6 months. And if you haven't, please, just if I ask one favor of you today, if you run e-commerce, if you run Google Shopping ads, go to your merchant center today and just take a look around at the opportunities for your data feed. Have you updated your product titles recently? Have you updated your description? What attributes are you missing? Because a weak data feed is going to be contributing to overall low impressions and potentially wasted clicks due to irrelevant ads and just not supercharging these products with all of the information that you know about them. And in one of our examples on the next slide, you'll see an example of one of those offenders of something that's just too generic. Here we have Rawlings glove, and it's just really missing a lot of context about this glove. And if I was looking to do preliminary research about a glove, maybe this could have been a landing page on search that I could have explored in a collection. But if I'm looking for a specific glove, it's going to be very difficult for me as a shopper to feel confident that this landing page is going to offer me the glove that's going to solve my need based on size, color, position, etc. And we really want to build all of that confidence that we can for that shopper, especially right now where, again, due to tariffs and the changing environment, we're having users be very, very particular on where they shop and where they are, going to make that choice. And we don't want them to go anywhere else. We want to build that confidence right out of the gate. And you can do that for both your shopper and for Google with those attributes. So the next slide, we see one that is checking all of those boxes. And I mentioned that there's kind of twofold benefit here. One to the consumer, because we're building that confidence by showing all of those different attributes that can help solve that need and show that this product is that match for them. But then we're also giving Google that confidence whenever it's looking for a product that's going to match that search the best. So we're really bulking that product title with keywords that are relevant in a way that's easy for the consumer to understand, but especially if we're making adjustments to our campaigns by leveraging negatives and really going after fine-tuning that ad to that shopper. We don't want to miss any opportunities or for Google to think the product is something that it's not. So I really encourage you to go through each of those attributes in your feed and in Merchant Center. There's so many great new reporting tools in Merchant Center as well. And if your feed is not updated appropriately, you're really missing out on those visibility tools. There's great tools around what product types are trending. If there is a surge in demand for a specific brand, there's product benchmarking tools that are now available for your prices. So if there is a competitor who is you may be undercutting that price and you don't have a product that's locked by map, that's a great tool that you can use. It's something that our specialists here bring to so many conversations because there is that reporting and that immediate need to, if we can grab that sale, let's do it. If we need to run a 15% off promo and we have that capability, let's do it because the demand's showing there. Again, if we don't have those attributes in place, we could be missing out on so many different areas. And again, if it's irrelevant, that could be a wasted click and wasted spend, but even more so, it's let's capture those users right now when they're in market. Let's make sure that we've got a competitive price where we can, and that we're really matching ourselves to that search as quickly as possible. So I would just not, leave the data feed and Merchant Center on the back burner because it could really be making a difference for your products right now. I think we hit on all of these really, but I would encourage you to do some searches and find some of those violators in your industry. See if you're one of them. I know we have some great people right off the gate in the chat here, and I have full confidence that your feed looks great, but just do this exercise. Go in and look for your competitors' products, or even if there's something you were shopping for today, we're looking for a new sofa. So I was doing some searches for a brown leather sofa to match our living room. And sometimes you just get a very bad product ad that's just sofa, or I'm trying to find a real leather sofa. Just going in that market of a shopper, you'll see even on the Google search engine, there's so many different options on the left-hand side of a product ad, materials, colors, and check your feed against that. We're very spoiled here at Agital. We have actually a data feeds team who helps complete those in an initial audit right out of the gate for our clients, which is really helpful. But in situations where you don't have your own feeds team, I think it's important to do that exercise more frequently, just to make sure you've got all of those fields, again, like the size, color, material, so you're giving yourself every chance to win that relative auction.
Absolutely. Shout out to our feeds team,
Love
Peter,
them.
Ben, love you guys. Yeah, and I think one of the points you made here, Laura, is like a lot of these fields are optional. So it's very easy to put up a not so great product feed. Google requires not that much in terms of all the detail, but you really can provide a lot more with these optional fields and get a lot more visibility.
Yeah, easy to get away with the bare minimum. It is.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that'll make you stand out right away.
absolutely. Cool. Let's move on to mistake number three, which is misusing bidding strategies. One of my favorites here. I can turn it over to you, Tom, to talk about bid strategy.
Perfect. Yeah. So bid strategy. I remember when manual bidding was used in 99% of the situations, and the big push was to turn on enhanced CPC, and that was the big automated bidding upgrade. And everybody was scared to use all of the different automated bidding solutions. Obviously, a lot has changed. There's a lot of improvements that have been made in automated bidding. And if you're not already using automated bidding, it's important to test it. But if you are using automated bidding, you want to make sure that you're using it the right ways and you're using the best strategy for your situation. So to go into that a little bit more, some of the main ones to focus on, maximize clicks. So when to use, when to avoid. Maximize clicks can be great when you're focused more on quantity of traffic over quality of traffic necessarily. When you need to drive visibility or higher click volume, it can be a great solution. Also, if you're battling really high cost per clicks, it's a great test to see if you can generate more traffic with lower CPCs. Also, it's a really good strategy if you know that conversion rate is a little bit more consistent in that campaign. So where, quality of traffic doesn't really matter too much because you're really encouraged or you're really confident in your match types and the keyword targeting that you have. Max clicks can be great. When to avoid. You never want to use maximize clicks with broad match. That can be I mean, you could do it and you could try to just add negatives and negatives and negatives. It'd be really tough, I think, for it to perform well and to perform efficiently. So something to avoid. Lower intent searches. So when you are less confident in your keyword targeting, I was mentioning that with the DSAs, right? A lot of blog topics can sometimes result in a lot of search volume, but for lower transactional, lower intent type searches. So that's something you'd want to avoid with max clicks because it's really just concerned about driving volume of traffic rather than volume of conversions. So yeah, when profitability is a top metric, max clicks might not be the best solution. Max conversions, or I'll lump max conversion value into this as well. These are strategies that will take your daily budget and will spend to that daily budget to achieve maximizing conversions or maximize conversion value. So great for campaigns that are just starting out, great for campaigns that are limited by budget. Say you only have $100 that you can dedicate to this campaign, you cannot give it any more. It'll put $100 to the best use to try to achieve as much conversions as it can within that $100. Also, when you have multiple conversion actions, it's a good way to try and see how many conversions that it can grab from each of them. When to avoid. When profitability is a top metric, the only way to improve or optimize to efficiency is optimizing the budget. Obviously, with search terms and negative keywords, you can do that as well, but it's a little bit less control in terms of profitability. Brand awareness. So when you're trying to generate more volume of traffic or visibility, like I mentioned with max clicks, where it's more concerned over quantity of traffic over quality of traffic, max conversions is more concerned about quality of traffic over quantity of traffic. So it's going to try to pay a lot more, higher CPCs for higher conversion rates that it's anticipating. It might work, it might not always work. And this last one here, target ROAS, target CPA. I'm sure you've heard target ROAS is essentially that gold star of bidding strategies. It can be great when you have a ROAS goal, set the ROAS goal, and it can pretty consistently try to achieve that ROAS goal as long as it's realistic within the current market. When conversion volume is high enough, this is the biggest thing that I always see limiting target ROAS or even target CPA campaigns, is when a campaign is limited by conversion volume, it's going to be under optimized. Target ROAS needs at least 30 conversions in the last 30 days to optimize efficiently. If you're running target ROAS with just a handful of conversions in the last 30 days, you're not going to see as great as performance, and you might want to test a different bidding strategy. So when to avoid, conversion volume is too low, but when you're limited by budget, it can also be under optimized.
To totally underline this one because it's one that Tom, we saw recently with these campaigns where target ROAS, especially right now, we want every dollar back that we can get. It seems so appealing to immediately go for that option. And we'll see the campaign starting to spend well in the beginning. And if we have these very large AOV products, those conversions might be more few and far between, or the latency behind them, especially if there's like a store visit component, can be so lengthy that it just winds up kind of shooting us in the foot, because then the campaigns are so focused on, when am I going to get the next conversion? I don't feel confident enough to spend until I see some sort of action again. So really avoiding this in those situations, or looking at an alternative conversion action, can help keep these campaigns alive, because it can seem so promising from the beginning, but then we have so many situations where ad spend will just jump off a cliff and you're wondering what happened. I would really keep that 30 conversions mentality in mind. And if it's lower, that could be what's plaguing that campaign.
Yeah, and And I think one thing that's important, and this slide kind of highlights it, is there's no one size fits all bidding strategy for every business, every account, or every campaign. We need to be creative with testing bidding strategies, um, even testing different iterations of campaign targeting. Because bidding strategies can work better for different structurally built campaigns. Um, so an example here is a campaign that was using target ROAS, was seeing low profitability, and was 25% below goal. So might not be a standard solution, but something that we did to be creative was testing maximize clicks. We were noticing that CPCs were really high, but the conversion rate wasn't making enough sense. The average order value wasn't making enough sense to make that ROAS hit goal still. So by testing maximize clicks, we saw CPCs reduce. By introducing more traffic, more quantity of traffic with still strong targeting within the campaign, we were able to hit profitability goals. So again, just emphasizing the need to, just because you've been running a bidding strategy for a while, you've been seeing okay performance, maybe it's been more sluggish lately, there's always opportunities to test against different bidding strategies, whether you're switching a bidding strategy, doing a period over period review, or doing an experiment. 50% of the campaign is using this bidding strategy, 50% is using this bidding strategy. So yeah, there's just a lot of opportunity to test.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. I can't tell you how many accounts I look at that have the wrong bidding strategy based on either the price point or the CPCs or the amount of conversions. It's really an important thing to get right.
Yeah, of course. So it's just doing a lot of the testing and monitoring is huge.
Absolutely. Cool. All right. Let's move on to number 4 here. Letting your creative go stale. And this is I think an important one, especially in Google Ads, where I think creative can sometimes sort of play second fiddle to all of the, keyword targeting and product groups and asset groups. So we want to launch a poll and ask everyone here, how often do you update ad creative, specifically in Google Ads? Do you ever do it? Do you do it every 6 months, every 3 months, or are you doing it more often, every month, or even more than once a month? And I think what Laura is about to present with creative is that a lot of this is kind of dependent on your business and who your customers are, but really interesting to see what people say with this. Okay, we'll keep it open a few more moments. 3, 2, 1. All right, cool. All right, so I think it's safe to say that most attendees here are not refreshing creative very often. The 24% that say never can definitely help you out here and give you some tips. We had 47% that says every 6 months. That can be fine sometimes. Other times, I think you want to do it a little more often. Then we had 3 months at 12% and every month at 18%. No one's doing it more than once a month, which is interesting, but expected, I think, here. Great. So let's jump into it then. Laura, tell us about creative.
Yeah, I was going to say there really is no wrong answer, but when I saw
Yeah.
that never was an option, I think that one might be because there's so many opportunities to get in front of your consumers with creative and so many great new placement opportunities with Google. I don't think this stat is very surprising that people will tune out after seeing the same thing 10 times. If I get a notification on my phone 10 times, I've like pretty much tuned it all completely out. But I think there really is something to say about refreshing creative and that opportunity that Google now gives us to cover so many different placements very quickly with our creatives. So In the next slide, we have a seasonal client, this fruit tree client, and they hadn't updated their ads in a while. It was leading to fatigue, and we were able to, get those refreshed quickly and improve that return on ad spend. And the great thing, especially in a performance max setting, when you're updating creative, is that creative is going to be rotated, and what's working is going to be what is increased in visibility. And there's so many testing options with that creative that you can just go ahead and set up. And by creative, Jason, I see your question. Does that include headlines and descriptions? When I'm thinking creative, I'm thinking more images and video. But to your point, don't ignore those headlines and descriptions either. They really go hand in hand. On the next slide, we have a couple of examples of different creatives that you can test. And I think, Jason, that's just such a great point, that adding in those headlines and descriptions to coincide with that creative is just as important. But if you're not already testing different types of creative to see what resonates with your audience, here are 3 quick ones that you can kind of take home and go practice with. One could be a lifestyle with a call to action. The other can be something that's more of a product image that's more natural. And the third one can be maybe something that's a little out of the box or different than your standard, that maybe features that product or whatever it is that you're trying to get consumers to convert on, and a little bit of maybe a more natural lifestyle setting, maybe without a person in it, or maybe with a person in it. Just try something different. It's a great tip that I learned from our social team, is you never know until you try what users are going to resonate it with. And sometimes it's very easy to put ourselves in a box of our brand standard and not break out. And there's ways to integrate that into your creative. So if there's another piece of homework I can give you other than your data feed, is to go into a Performance Max campaign and update your creative if you are running those, and add in those different sizes. Google has great tools within their interface too to help you with images, including some AI tools. But refresh that creative based on seasonality where it exists. Add in those different types of creative to test, like a lifestyle, a product. And if you have a user-generated content, that is a great way that you can integrate those from social media to your Google Ads campaigns. You can also, of course, import your Google Ads and work with Microsoft campaigns as well. So there's so much cross functionality of those creatives where you're probably not even reinventing the wheel. You're taking something that's working well someplace else and repurposing it someplace to see, how that impacts your campaigns and your performance, and measure them. Set up different asset groups based on those different creative types. Make sure you're naming them so you can keep track when you're going back and looking at your testing. But again, it doesn't cost you anything extra in these campaigns to add or refresh your creative to get back in front of those users, or show something different and maybe capture a different type of audience. We're going to get into talking about audiences more, but testing and pairing different visuals with those audience segments can just be such a great way to learn more about that consumer and show them that you understand them.
Yeah, absolutely, Laura. And I think for the 38% of people who said their performance is about the same in Google Ads year over year, refreshing creative could be a great way to give your account a boost.
And the tools are right there. That AI tool, it has come so far. If you tested it a year ago and you got the 3-eyed cat and it gave you nightmares, go back and test it again because it's come a long way. It's actually really good.
Yeah, it seems like people have 5 fingers now instead of 6, which is
Oh,
great. It's working.
right.
I love that. Cool. And that brings us to our last mistake here, and that's neglecting audience segmentation. So I think audience segmentation is super important in Google Ads. Um, they give you ample opportunity to give audience signals. So there are a lot of kind of like positive signals you can give Google based on people who have been to your website before, made a purchase from you before, maybe people who are in market for your products or services, or even like certain demographics. There are also exclusions that you can add to audiences as well. And it's very important to exclude, let's say, past purchasers from your awareness campaigns, and keep those cohorts separate. So there are a lot of segments that need to be created. One example I wanted to hone in on here, I see this a lot in accounts that I analyze, like prospect accounts that come to us, is that their remarketing doesn't work very well. And it could be like YouTube remarketing or like display or demand gen remarketing, or for some reason their, tried and true um, 30-day site visitors audience is just not working. And I think a lot of advertisers will just tend to maybe turn this off instead of trying to refine it. But really, there's a lot we can do within this audience, especially if it's getting a significant volume of traffic and clicks each month, to refine it. And we have a framework here that you can use, kind of think about your remarketing audiences in a much more granular way. So it's not just about grouping everyone together who has visited your site in some period of time. We can start to segment based on actions they've taken and their behavior on your site. So the most valuable will be those cart abandoners, 1 day, 3 day, 7 day abandonment audiences. We want to have pretty high bids on these. Obviously, we don't want to cut into the profit of the sale too much, but kind of like bringing these people back is really priority number one. Then we have, a couple of really high value people who may have not added to carts, but they have visited a number of pages that you deem valuable, could be 3 or more pages. Maybe they spent a significant amount of time on your website, and you want to make sure that those people are coming back. You can also layer in the time component, within the last 7 days, people who have exhibited these high value behaviors. And then you can start to segment your site visitors. So not just lumping them all in together, but saying, hey, 7 days, last 14 days, last 30 days. And each of these successive audiences can get a lower and lower bid, or a lower, ROAS target or CPA target, or higher CPA target, depending on their value. But you really want to take a tiered approach. You might even find that you start to just pause some of these groups of people who, if they don't have good performance or they're not converting after 14 days or 30 days, then feel free to exclude those from the targeting. That can really make your remarketing start to come back to life and actually be working for you, because there's a good chance that there's a segment of those past visitors that are going to work and going to drive profitability for the business, and you just need to be able to find those and give yourselves the levers and the segments to do so. So takeaways here: segment the audiences like we just talked about. Make sure to get past purchasers out of there. Make sure to remove site visitors from your awareness campaigns, things like that. You can use dynamic product ads and time-based offers. So Laura, I think you alluded to this, with some of the creative and things like that. Some of those offers are really good to use to kind of lure people back to the site. Then we talked about excluding the past purchasers and kind of treating them a little bit differently, so you're not spending too much on people who are already loyal customers for your brand. Excellent. So questions to ask yourself here as we go through this. We're about to launch a poll, so stay tuned. But what you really want to be asking yourself as you think about your account is, are your keywords doing the right thing? Are they doing their job? Are they attracting buyers and not just browsers? Is your feed optimized with really good titles, descriptions, all those optional fields that Laura talked about, images? Are you using the right bidding strategy based on the goals, based on the performance, and based on the price of your products? And then when was the last time you refreshed the creatives? We know there's a big group that have yet to do so here. So it's something to really look into and focus on. And then asking yourself if you're doing the right segmentation of your audiences and really honing in on the right level of especially remarketing audiences, so you can maximize your profitability. Great. So most people are still here. It's amazing. Thanks so much for staying with us. We have one more poll, and then we'll get into Q&A. And the final poll, which we will not be sharing, but we'll just take for our own information, is whether or not you're interested in a Google Ads audit to find opportunities to cut waste and to scale. The audit will be conducted by either myself or Tom or Laura. So some familiar faces here. And I would ask, if you do want an audit, it would be great if you had at least, let's say, like 10,000 a month in ad spend, and you might be looking to outsource the management of Google Ads to an agency like us. So we'll keep this poll up as you guys contemplate that, but we would like to get into some Q&A here. There's a few questions, and once we get through those, we can add a couple of bonus mistakes here that we've talked about. So let's see. Okay, so here's a question from Romana. It says, which bid strategy to use if our goal conversion, if our goal is conversion, but we are unable to set up conversion campaigns. No e-com integration on the website. It's a branded website. So Tom or Laura, I don't know if you wanted to take a first stab at this.
Yeah, yeah, I can jump into that one. So, it sounds like, it could be a lead generation type focus. So as long as you have some type of action that somebody can take on the website, making sure that we're tracking that. And if you have multiple actions, even better. Something I've seen done and something we've done a lot with lead generation accounts where there's no technically e-commerce functionality of the site is assigning values to different conversions based off of priority level. And then you can start to use target ROAS once you have enough volume, and it'll start to optimize for the conversions that are of higher value or higher priority to you just by essentially adding almost arbitrary values to those lead generation conversions.
Yeah, yeah, I like that, Tom. And if there really is like no action to be taken on the site, if it's purely just like a landing page and branding, then you can use also maximize clicks just to get the most traffic out of your budget. It's a great question. Um, so, yep, for those who arrived late, we will be sending a copy of the webinar, the recording. So don't worry. Juliana asks, how do you combat spam with these segments? It's an interesting question. I think we have seen spam from certain campaign types, and I think probably the best thing is just like, on-site, um, you know, CAPTCHA, things like that. But I think you have to pay attention because sometimes, like with lead generation, I've noticed that Performance Max, for example, is a really tough campaign type to um, to wrangle. And they're just like some industries that will get a lot of spammy leads. So if you find that, then maybe there's like a certain channel. Oh yeah, and you're saying yes, exactly. Yeah. So I found for lead gen sometimes like search, display, demand gen campaigns are more effective than Performance Max at kind of just keeping out the spam. But the remarketing segments we were talking about, they're more kind of getting more targeted and more precise. So if there are people that are spending time on the site and taking actions, then hopefully they won't be um, spammy, leads. Um, cool. Juliana also asks, would you recommend targeting by state or country instead of the entire country when targeting the USA and Canada? Also wondering if excluding spam-prone countries is worth implementing with exclusions. Um, Tom, Laura, give you guys first crack.
One thing
Yeah,
I'll
go ahead, Tom.
I was just gonna say one thing I'll say here. One thing that's really important to pay attention to when it comes to location targeting is the setting for presence targeting. It's kind of a hidden setting within campaigns. But essentially, the default is presence or interest, which may actually be targeting people outside of your targeted location. So you'll just want to make sure you have that set to presence targeting. Um, but yeah, when you have the ability, you can always be more granular with your location targeting. So targeting by states, rather than just by country, so that you can get easier reporting on state level performance, and make optimizations that way. And then you can always make exclusions as well to either states you don't want to target, countries you don't want to target, to really just avoid any irrelevant traffic.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Cool. And then we have another one here from Deepika. what would be your recommendation on adding online courses for K to 12 students and creating a feed similar to Google Shopping ads as a display campaign? Interesting. Laura, I'll pass this one to you if you have thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think it's such a great strategy to consider all of the attributes that a shopping ad has. Here I would consider, like to Tom's point earlier, what's the conversion goal? Is it a lead generation for people interested in the courses, or is it actually checking out and purchasing an online course? Is it a subscription model? If there is like a checkout functionality, then working it like a product ad and feed is actually very likely a capability. If it's not, going to kind of the roots of this webinar, which is segmentation, is going to be your best friend, and really breaking those out to highlight the features of each one of those courses, targeting that audience for each of those ranges of schooling. So if you really want to go after kindergarten, creating that audience segment, aligning that imagery, refreshing that creative. As we have people in summer, are there summer school options, or are we trying to get those people who are looking to enroll early and enroll now and capture that high intent? Would be my first recommendation, is to strategize with segmentation, and then consider the conversion option to help align with the right campaign choice.
Great. And Deepika said it would be lead gen would be the first goal. So yeah, it might not be the best strategy. I think you need to have like a price and the ability to add to cart, and for Google to crawl your website and see a product, see a price. So it's an interesting thought, but yeah, I think if it's lead gen, you probably have to take advantage of some of the other ad units. Tim asks, do you recommend separating match types into different campaigns or consolidating them into one? Might give this to you, Tom.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, I think there's use cases for both. So, I really do think it depends. There's situations where you want to be really, really careful with broad match, maybe, and you want to use it strictly for discovery. You want to have really strong, or sorry, really tight budget on it and really tight goals on it. Maybe you're targeting a higher ROAS. So a separate campaign for broad match could make sense in that situation. However, if you are seeing success from broad match or you want to test it with more scale, you could lump it into your existing campaigns. You'll probably see broad match start to take up a lot of your spend. But one of the benefits of having broad match with other match types in the same campaign is Google has said that broad match has a lot of indicators that phrase and exact match do not have. One of them is broad match can utilize the other keywords in the campaigns to help refine its targeting. So by adding broad match into an existing campaign with other match types, you could see that benefit the broad match relevancy, the relevancy of the broad match keywords, and you could see that factor into better performance. So there are use cases for both. That's why I always recommend testing before just locking into a position. But yeah, I do think that there's opportunities to see success in either.
Yeah, it's a great point, Tom. I think I've become a broad match believer as of this year, and just seeing how much more effective it is than it used to be. And it is the only AI enabled match type too. So like when we're thinking about that, it is something that Google is investing a lot in. And when we're looking at the search queries, like yes, there still seems to be opportunity for negative keywords, but it's just not nearly as irrelevant as it was in the past. And majority of the searches that I see, at least getting triggered in broad match, are like really relevant to the keyword and the products or the services on the client's website. Cool. So I think that is all the questions we have. Let's see, did I miss any? Nope. Amazing. Thanks so much for the great Q&A, everyone. We're basically right on time. So thanks for hanging out with us and talking about costly mistakes you can make in Google Ads. I hope everyone learned something today. Thank you so much, Laura and Tom, for being amazing presenters. And our webinar series will be back in 2 weeks. We have a new webinar every other week, so be sure to tune in to the next one. Thank you, everyone.
So much fun. Thanks, everyone. Great to
Thank
see
you,
you
everybody.
waving from across Lake Michigan.
Love that. Bye, everybody.
Bye.